In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you another set of numbers. I'm going to be sharing how much I actually made from my first investment property in 2024. Now, in my last video, I did share how much I spent in total to acquire the investment property. If you haven't watched the video, I'm going to link it in the description box below. It might give you a bit more context to this video. So before we go into the numbers, I thought that it would be useful for me to give a bit of background and summary into the property itself. So I did buy an investment property in July of 2023, and it's a 3-bed, 1-bath property located in Liverpool. I bought the property for £110,000 and I put down 25% deposit on it because it's an investment property, and also I put down 3% stamp duty on it as well. But one of the things that I mentioned in my last video was that I set up the property as a furnished house because I was hoping and looking to earn a higher rental income on it. So let's actually see if that has paid off. But before I go into the numbers again, I thought that maybe it'll be worth it to start with how much the mortgage payment is. So the mortgage on that property is actually an interest-only mortgage, which means that I'm only paying interest on a monthly basis. It's not a repayment mortgage, which is usually a combination of your principal and interest. So in the life of the mortgage, I would only be required to pay the interest on a monthly basis and then only be obliged to pay the principal at the end of the 30-year mortgage that I have on the property. I also went for a tracker mortgage, which means that the interest rate on this mortgage actually tracks the Bank of England base rate. So it's not a fixed rate. So a fixed rate is somewhat predictable. You know how much you're going to be paying in the term of the mortgage. It's a fixed amount, even with the initial term, which could be 2 years or 5 years, depending on what you go for. I went for a 2-year tracker mortgage on the investment property, and I'll tell you a bit of why I did that as well. So number one is the fact that the mortgage is actually with a specialist lender. Because of my specific situation at the time that I was trying to get the mortgage, I was on a visa. I was a first-time buyer, first-time landlord, which meant that I didn't have my own personal house before trying to buy an investment property. And obviously, it wasn't all the main street lenders that were open to such profile, right? So I did have to go with a specialist lender, and their interest rate was actually quite high. It was close to 7% per annum. And because I know that my situation was going to change in a few years, I didn't want to lock in for 5 years, right? So I decided to lock in for 2 years. The decision to go with a tracker interest rate as opposed to a fixed rate was primarily because, I was hoping that the interest rate, the Bank of England base rate, would come down considerably. Unfortunately, it went off a bit before it started coming down. So when you're on a tracker interest mortgage, it means that if the Bank of England base rate goes up, your interest rate is going to go up, and if it comes down, your interest rate is going to go down. So literally, it's tracking it. Whatever movement is on the Bank of England base rate, that is going to have an impact on what you're going to be paying on a monthly basis. So it's not very predictable, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. When I did start out the mortgage in 2023, I started with I think it was £645 I was paying monthly. but then it started coming down as the Bank of England base rate was coming down. But at the beginning of January, I was paying £510 on a monthly basis, and by the end of 2024, the mortgage rate was £471 on a monthly basis. So if you're following, base rate changes, you would know that Bank of England base rate actually started dropping a bit in 2024. So I did benefit from the drop in that base rate. So essentially, I paid between £510 monthly to £471 on a monthly basis. However, in total, the amount of interest I paid towards my mortgage in 2024 was £6,133.42. All right, so now that we have the mortgage payment out of the way, let's talk about the rental income. The type of mortgage that I have on this investment property is a buy-to-let mortgage, and your mortgage lender is going to specify the kind of tenancy they want you to have with your mortgage. So if your mortgage would allow you to do HMO, they can specify. If your mortgage is going to allow you to do some other things, it would specify. My mortgage only allows me to do what they call AST contract tenancy, which is assured hold tenancy. It's some sort of like a fixed type of tenancy where you have someone in the property for a minimum of 6 months. I know of people who have buy-to-let mortgages, but they're allowed to do HMO even with their buy-to-let mortgage. So essentially, like, your lender is going to let you know the type of tenancy and what you can do creatively with your property, right? So that is the type of mortgage on the property. So at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I furnished the property and I set it up in a way that I wanted it to attract a higher rent. Now, in the location the property is at in Liverpool, the average rent for a 3-bedroom house is between £750 and £800, right? So when I started out, I was getting £900. The difference wasn't a lot, right? But that was what I was getting. So at the beginning of January, the rental income on the property was £900 a month, up until July. Now in July, I did get another type of tenant into the property, and essentially this person was looking for a temporary accommodation to stay in for a minimum of 6 months because their home was under repairs. So while their home was under repairs, their insurance company was covering the cost of their temporary accommodation, including bills. So that was the tenant that was in my property up until December, and they were paying £1,950, including bills. So everything from electricity, gas, council tax, water bill, internet, everything was provided for them. So the total rent that I got on the property in 2024, including the initial £900 and the other £1,950 that the new tenant paid, was a total of £16,230. So having a different kind of tenant in the property actually started opening my eyes into the opportunities that actually exist for fully furnished homes, even in a place like Liverpool. I know I mentioned in my last video that, some agents that I spoke with said, having the house furnished would have zero impact on the amount of rent that I can get. But what I've found out in my experience is that you just have to target a different kind of tenant. So right now that I'm even advertising for the property, I'm getting a lot of inquiries from people who are trying to relocate into the UK and just want to move in, or even move up north from down south. So I know that there's that opportunity. I'm still trying to crack it. And when I do, I will try and share a bit more tips on some of the things that have helped me to try and attract a lot of this sort of like tenants. So now I know that that market exists. It's not the easiest market to tap into, but it does exist. And I'm still trying to walk through like how to consistently get those sort of tenants into the property who actually need a fully furnished house and are willing to pay a premium having the house furnished, whether it's with bills or without bills. It really wouldn't matter as long as they're open to paying the premium on the rent itself, because the house is fully set up for them to just move in. So when we're talking numbers in terms of how much I've made and how much I've spent on my mortgage interest, I think it's also important that I also talk about the bills that I paid and maintenance cost. In terms of bills, when the second tenant was in the property, the bills was around £400 a month. So in all, I probably paid maybe about £2,000 in bills from the 16,000 that was made. Another thing that I had to do before that tenant moved in was that I had to change the entire bathroom of the house. So I spent 4,400 changing the entire bathroom of the house. So the bathtub, the sink, the toilet, tiling, everything was done again because we were having some issues with the toilet, and it wasn't one of the things that I fixed when I did the initial refurb. So I had to do that as well. Then, a few minor maintenance that I had to do as well. There was a damp wall that we had to repair. That was about £350. And then had to also pay for advertising when the initial tenant was leaving the house. So a bit of all of that probably would come up to maybe another 500 and something pounds. But in terms of like net income out of the 16,230 that was made in 2024, after the mortgage payments, the bills, the maintenance costs, and all of that, the net income was £3,168. And I don't think that that is bad, because if I remove the bathroom that we had to redo, it would have actually really pushed up the net profit on the property. Although I would say the net profit at the end of the year was £0. And that's simply because this £3,168 that was profit was actually put into some of the costs that I had to incur on the purchase of the second investment property. So basically, I've just rolled in the profit into the second investment property as well. But I would say that in all, it wasn't actually bad. I probably would have been able to roll in a bit more profit if I didn't have to replace the entire bathroom. But I didn't want anyone to be calling me every time to be saying, hey, there's something wrong with the toilet, it's getting clogged all the time. I just wanted to make sure that, I didn't have to be stressing. I'm based in London, the property is in Liverpool, and I'm self-managing as well. So as much as possible, I wanted the house to just be in a position where it wouldn't stress me and I wouldn't have to be going back and forth. So guys, what do you think? Because I'm at a phase where I know that there's an opportunity for me to actually earn a lot more because the house is furnished. But like I said, I'm still trying to figure it out how to really attract a lot more of those sort of tenants. And yeah, if anyone has any tips for me in how to attract a lot more of this kind of tenants into the property, that would be greatly appreciated. If anyone has figured it out, how to find, people who are maybe relocating and need a place to stay. I currently advertise on Open Rent and Spare Room right now. That's where I find tenants. So, let me know your thoughts. I hope this video has been helpful. And if it has, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.